this episode, we're going to read a chapter from the book Wheels of Truth by Joseph Murphy, none other than Joseph Murphy. Before I start, I really appreciate you guys liking, commenting, and subscribing. It does help my channel grow, and I really love the support. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment. I always read them, and it will help me get new ideas to see what I can do with my YouTube channel, grow my YouTube channel, and give you content that will actually help you and add value to your life. So thank you so much. Anyway, let's start. Relaxation. Be still and know that I am God. We must realize that the cause underlying most failures to effectual prayer is muddled thinking and lack of emotional control. The important thing to observe is that we find the same law operative in the magnetic attraction of impulses of fear, jealousy, anger, and despair, which are responsible for most of the failures and frustrations in life, as we find in the ineffable emotion of love, which results in good. A single principle, an identical force, lies underneath accomplishment or failure. Fear begets inescapable, tribulation. It is the manifestation which alone differs according to the mood of the individual. All disease has its origin in emotional frustration. Man is the product of his emotions and moods. The tendency is to project blame on another for unfortunate circumstances, stressing heredity, environment, or lack of opportunity. This attitude of mind sometimes acts as a temporary hypodermic to bolster lagging morale, but it does not get rid of the causes of suffering and afflictions. The world is a mirror reflecting our predominant mental attitude and is constantly showing us ourselves. We do not always like what we see, neither do we take the initiative and proceed to change the picture. If we indulge in negative tendencies, we soon come face to face with conditions of a similar vibration. Like attracts like. This is the perfect working of the immutable law of cause and effect. We consistently deny that everything depends on cause, and with stupendous blindness seek to change the effect. A streak of jealousy aroused in us will indubitably attract situations involving other jealous people, either in the home, at business, or in our social work. Quite often, we hear people say that the one thing they dislike most is jealousy in others. If we watch their reactions, we find the fault is in themselves. What we think or feel finds its affinity in our external world and finds its likeness. The lesson to be learned is we must take the beam out of our own eye by self-study and self-examination. Eventually, we shall not discern even the mote in our brother's eyes. When we see fault in others, let us look inside ourselves, for there we shall find, if we look with unbiased examination, them hidden in a corner of our own thoughts. Frustration and an inferiority complex are, as a rule, due to frustrated vanity. If we constantly fail and our efforts meet a stone wall, we must look within and see why. It may have the appearance of important circumstances. To affect a change of circumstances, there must be a change of consciousness, a consciousness dominated by the spirit of success. In order to succeed, we must have the confidence of success, erasing from the mind every discordant thought. It is our mood, the intensity of sustained faith, which impresses itself on the subjective mind. The barrier to success is when we allow our personal ego to draw a boundary around our consciousness. It is good also to ask ourselves if we simply are seeking recognition and applause for ourselves, or are we sincerely interested in what next, or do we want to serve humanity? Do we want to be an Emerson, a Lincoln who loved humanity, or do we seek self-aggrandizement and personal glory? Shall we give a lasting message of truth, or shall we condition it to crowds of people? If we have something to offer, it will be used except we stand in its way. Vacillation waving, and the so-called mercurial ups and downs result from a lack of an inner objective or ideal. Often a person says, "I'm going around in circles." He hopes someone will come along eventually and show him the way. He lacks stability and does not know if he would only become still and listen to the inner voice. It would speak to him and guide him. "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth." In the scriptures, Genesis chapters 1 and 2, we are given both the formula and the mode for bringing to birth the living manifestation of our archetypal ideal. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth a living creature after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our own image after our likeness. Then the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Breathed into or in breath. If this breathing into can create one manifestation, it can by virtue of its power create another. Therefore, we shall prescribe a rhythmic breathing exercise to overcome nervous tension and induce relaxation. At first, until it becomes natural, it is well to perform the exercise sitting erect or lying down on a flat surface. There can be no accomplishment where there is tension. A thoughtless effort is the maxim for all spiritual progress, which is the prerequisite of all earthly achievement. Exercise 1. Your chest, neck, and head should be held in as straight as a line possible. 2. Then inhale through the nostrils, mentally counting 6 pulse drops. 3. Hold breath during 3 counts. 4. Exhale through the nostrils during 6 counts. 5. Hold lungs empty during 3 counts. 6. Repeat as often as desired as no slightest discomfort is felt. After a little practice, the rhythm will be perfectly established without necessity of mentally counting. When this is achieved, all tenseness and effort will disappear and complex relaxation results. Later, you can execute this exercise with perfect ease while walking each step a rhythmic unit of count. However, in the beginning, especially for city dwellers where there is a continued interruption of traffic crossings and congestions, it is better to confine the exercise to the sitting or lying down posture. In addition to the physical reaction of this rhythmic breathing, there is a spiritual response. With each inhalation, you may impregnate your subconscious with whatever suggestion you wish. It is important to remember that suggestions should be practiced simultaneously with the breathing, especially the in-breathing. This chapter is written primarily for beginners and for those students who have not learned the fine art of relaxation and response, which is akin to sleep. The latter is really a device intended to induce the auto-hypnotic state which is most ideal for impressing the subconscious. For example, if you are gloomy or despondent, as you in-breathe orally or mentally, say "I am happy" and feel it, smile. This exercise may be repeated 24 or 100 times at one time and repeated as often as you like. When we learn to breathe rhythmically, its effects on the nervous system is such that all tension is dissolved. All of us know that from a physiological standpoint, deep diaphragmatic breathing is very beneficial in promoting bodily well-being. The sensation of well-being, which always follows the drawing of a deep breath, follows and favors the acceptance of any new suggestion. During this breathing exercise, we should visualize ourselves as we long to be, full of vigor and health. The regular rhythm of breathing brings about a stimulus analogous to that exerted rhythm of breathing by every rhythm, such as, for example, music or dance forms, which has a soothing, lulling influence. This rhythm tends to immobilize the attention and induce relaxation. Many students find the suggestive value of respiratory exercise a great boon. To cite a case, an elderly lady who suffered from asthma for many years completely cured herself by the following exercise. She sat down quietly in her armchair and began to breathe slowly. And with each inhalation, she would silently affirm, "I am all health." She would keep this up for from 10 to 15 minutes morning and evening, and sometimes at noon. In 2 weeks, she was completely cured. Man is a pulsating rhythmic being. Our body are as much subject to rhythmic laws as is everything else in the universe. The ancients said, every atom in space dances to the rhythm of the gods. The universe is simply one note or tone in God, but there's an infinite number of tones or rates of vibration within the one. Everything that we see is vibrating and nothing is in absolute rest in nature. Only God or the Sphinx is motionless. Nature is the birth or activity of God, the one manifesting himself in countless ways. The moment forms appear in the world, they begin to change, and from them appear other forms, and so on ad infinitum. Forms are simply appearances, they come and go, and likewise the body of man is constantly changing. There is almost a complete change in the chemistry of the body in a matter of minutes. So much so that scarcely one atom or electron composing your body will be present a few months hence. All this vibration and constant change pervades the universe. The beating of your heart follows a certain rhythm. So also does the ebb and flow of the tide. In breathing, therefore, it is important to get in the mental mood of rhythm, such as the counting employed in music. For the individual who finds it difficult to relax and immobilize his attention, it is well to isolate himself in a room there will be no disturbance. It is important that you get into a rhythm until you feel the vibration throughout your whole body. Now look at a blue light, preferably a reading lamp with a blue bulb, 30 or 40 watt, placed about 10 inches from the eyes. Look directly at the bulb. This has an auto-hypnotic influence and induces profound relaxation. When the eyes are tired out, close them but do not go to sleep. Maintain conscious control of your thoughts. There must be no sense of strain, as immobilization of the attention must be carried out with the minimum of voluntary effort. Form a clear mental outline of your ideal, of what you desire, and then feel the reality of it. There must be one-pointedness of thought. Dwell on the fact that you are now the being you long to be, or that you have that which you long to have. Dwell on the thought with confident expectancy. After a week or 10 days, discontinue use of the blue light, as it only is a physical adjuvant. And we must not become slaves to the physical props of any kind. We must begin to induce the happy, relaxed state by the mental image we have. Failure is due to lack of faith. The law never fails. This is the end of the chapter. I expected it to be shorter, but it's actually longer than I expected. I mean, when you read it out loud. And I read it quite recently, and I'm a very, very big fan of those words. And that's one of the reasons why I love Joseph Murphy so much. I feel that Neville Goddard, even though I love him too, is pretty famous nowadays, and especially those few years. And Joseph Murphy doesn't get the credit he deserves, even though they kind of have the same mentor. From what I heard, I tried to check if they really did have the same mentor, Abdullah. But there's nothing that really confirms that there's only speculation, so to speak. But nonetheless, why I love Joseph Murphy so much, because I think he is the most straightforward and simple, he was teacher of the law of attraction, of the law of manifestation, and how cause and effect works in life. Because his teachings are kind of dumbed down. Neville Goddard tends to be a bit more spiritual, even though those guys are all very, very spiritual. It is part of spirituality. They're more religious. They talk about God. And for me, I'm not Christian. I'm not Catholic. I'm more inclined towards the Eastern philosophies, such as Buddhism. But I don't mind God or stuff like this. Those religious vernacular, those Catholic, Christian vernacular. It doesn't really matter, because nowadays, because we live in a society that is more atheist, in the West at least, we tend to change the word God with universe. And different strokes for different folks, right? And different times. So we adapt and we change the words. And the words don't matter so much. It's the essence behind the words. And why I like those words by Joseph Murphy so much is because it's straight to the point. It's really, really clear. There's no need to read between the lines. It's very, very clear and straightforward, and it is really, really efficient. And not only that, it is something that is easy to prove to oneself. Very, very fast, actually. So in this particular chapter, he talks about something that is really important. And before I start giving my commentary on what he said, what he wrote, is that it is true that you don't need to be, and that I had to learn the hard way, you don't need to be constantly happy to manifest. That's true. You don't need, because it's impossible. Like, I think, and I'm not saying that anybody has said that you should be happy at all times, because I think a lot of the teachings talk about happiness and high vibration, blah blah blah, etc., which is true. But nobody has ever said that you need to be happy all the time. It's just a misinterpretation of some words. Although I have to say that I think people should place more emphasis on focusing on this, because I think a lot of us think that we should actually vibrate high all the time, and it's like really, really hard. It's really almost impossible, because we get feelings, and feelings are out of our control. We can just kind of regulate in our attitude towards our feelings and our thoughts, and obviously the more we focus on the good, the more good we'll have, and vice versa, right? So we don't need to be happy all the time. However, what he talks about is those moments of tension, of those moments that are overwhelming, that moments where you have a physical manifestation of a negative thought. It started with a negative thought and it led to a physical emotion. Generally speaking, when it comes to doubts, fear, anxiety, it manifests itself around the area of the stomach, right? And that's why it is good to focus on this first and foremost. That's why, even though I like the mental diet aspect by Emmett Fox, the 7-Day mental diet, which he talks about completely closing the door, so to speak, to negative thoughts. And it's a great way, a great fundamentals to have in life. Of course, you don't want to lie. However, some of the things we suffer from are deep-seated and don't even need thoughts. That's why a guy like David Hawkins is amazing for this, because in his book Letting Go, he talks more about the emotional baggage we carry inside our bodies, right, and our minds. So I think, and I made another video about this, I think the greatest combination is to have this mental diet with the letting go. Because the mental diet is something you should always have in check, which means you always want to be sure you close the door to all those negative thoughts and replace them on the spot with positive thoughts. However, sometimes you will be overwhelmed and you won't necessarily have those negative thoughts, but you will have the physical manifestation of this emotion and feeling that's negative, and it's even worse than thoughts, because like it's crippling almost. You and generally speaking, not only you have this physical emotion, but they tend to bring about all those negative thoughts as well. So that's what he said. And obviously you can replace them, and you can replace the mental diet comes along and you can replace them with positive thoughts. However, in my opinion, when you get to this point when you are at the all-time low, so to speak, and when you are very overwhelmed, the best thing to do, Abraham Hicks talks about taking a nap, which is a great idea too. But other than a nap, you can just, what he described is pretty much meditation. And notice I didn't spend a lot of time on the exercise. I kind of brushed through it, and I'm sorry, because I think like I'm not saying that the rhythmic exercise he preconized in his chapter was not good, but how nowadays you can just meditate. I just want you guys to focus on something that actually make you relax. So it could be meditation, it could be yoga, it could be working out, etc. The form and exercise doesn't matter so that much. The result, which is the complete relaxation and this vanishing and fading away of this negative emotion, is the most important thing. That's what he talks about. So when you find yourself in this situation and when you feel it clearly as this manifestation, this emotion, this unwholesome negative emotion in your body the thing you should do is stop whatever you're doing. Close your eyes, meditate. The thing I usually do is very, very simple because I see directly in my body, stomach. I feel this weight in my stomach that wouldn't go away. So I place my hand on it, I close my eyes, and I tell myself, it's okay, it's all good. I soothe myself with simple mantra like, it's okay, everything will be all right, it's all good, everything is going my way, life always works out for me. I go general, as Abraham Hicks used to say. She's right when it comes to this. When it comes to this, you don't want to talk about your specific affirmation that you are using, generally speaking, because you are very, very, very low right now. So you don't necessarily need to go very specific. And when you go specific, it can tend to be counterproductive because you're in a situation where you don't necessarily believe those affirmations anyway. I mean, you don't believe them. You believe them less than you would if you were not in this predicament where you are actually having this unwholesome negative emotion that is kind of overwhelming. So the best thing to do is to let go, which means that's the definition. That's a Buddhist definition as well, but this is the definition that David Hawkins wrote in his book, Letting Go. Letting go, surrendering, is very simple. Is being okay with this emotion, this feeling being here or not, staying or leaving. That is surrendering. And you'll see, by virtue of just surrendering, and it helps if you put your hand on your stomach or wherever else you feel the feeling, and you just tell yourself, it's okay, it's all good. You can even say, I love myself, or I love this feeling. You're being kind to this emotion. You'll see, it won't take long. It's incredibly efficient. It won't be long until this emotion subsides. And when you are in this more neutral state, what you can do is either you go back to whatever you're doing, and that's what I recommend, take the time and do your affirmations again, do your visualization. And of course, this exercise of relaxation works even if you don't feel overwhelmed. It's always like, that's what he said, when you relax, you're in a state akin to sleep, which is the time where you can impress the subconscious mind the best. So you can do it even when you're not overwhelmed. You should do it at all times. But this is when you need it the most, is when you're overwhelmed and you have this unwholesome negative feeling in your body, in your mind, in your heart even. So that's the best time to use it. But use it on a daily basis. It takes 2-3 minutes if you don't feel negative. It just puts you in a situation. Although when you go to sleep, you're already kind of getting into the situation already, because your conscious mind is fading away and your subconscious mind is taking over. So in this transition, you can do your affirmation, etc. But in the morning when you wake up, you're already in a good state of mind, so you can relax a bit more and put yourself in the more your mind is still, the more you relax, the better it is. As this is really as simple as it gets. So whether you feel good or bad, is always good to have this tool. And not only it is good, I think it's crucial and essential. So when you are feeling overwhelmed, do not despair more. Do not add negative thoughts. Just be with the feeling, and don't worry, it will not ruin your day. It will not ruin your manifestation. It will not ruin anything. Just stay quiet. Stop whatever you're doing. Remove yourself from any distractions of work. Close your eyes and just take the time to let it go. Don't force it out, because what you resist persists. Just let it go. And you will, and I guarantee, if you surrender, if you let it go, if you're kind to it, if you're kind to yourself, if you take the time, it will go very fast. And only that, you will feel a relief like no other. And not only a relief, but you will feel accomplished. Why? Because you have conquered yourself and your mood. And then you can start anew, so to speak, and do your affirmation and go from a place where you're completely overwhelmed to somewhere neutral, and now to somewhere completely positive. So try it out and let me know how it goes. I just created a Facebook group not so long ago. You can see it in the description box below. I hope you will join us. And if you have any comments, any things you want to say, just leave it in the comment section. Thank you so much and see you soon.